To me, he truly was perfect. And I know my friends will say, oh, you grew up with rainbows and unicorns, and I think I did.
We all did, yeah.
I think I did.
Heck yeah.
Truly do not
sprinkles.
have a bad memory. And I know it sounds odd to say that, and people are like, but I just didn't. I cannot say a bad thing about them. Either one of them.
Mm-mm. I've been truly blessed to grow up in their home. Absolutely. I couldn't ask for a better father, a better mother, better siblings, and that's all a result of his leadership and my mom's nurturing love and care, them working as a team. Absolutely incredible. Yeah.
I've always said that if my kids have half the respect for me when I die that we have for him, I'll have a good life.
Irwin Roberts, and I was born and raised in Harrow, which is now a suburb of London, England. The Germans were looking for the Kodak factory that was in our town. They knew that film was being made there for RAF reconnaissance. Fortunately, the buildings were flat and they had camouflaged them so that from the air it looked like there was a meadow, and I think it had a stream running through it. My father worked there. He said had they found the factory, the town would have gone. We had a shelter outside in the backyard. Hated going out there because it was sunken in the ground. There's usually a little bit of water in there, and they had these horrible water beetles. I had two sisters, one 3.5 years older than me, one 10. The 3.5-year-old, she and I would go out there. We had bunk beds, I remember. My older sister refused to go into the shelter. She stayed in the house. No central heating. We had one fireplace in the living room, and it got very cold. We normally rush into the kitchen, which was very tiny, but my mother would put the oven on and leave the door open so we had some heat. I had a good life at home, really. We didn't have a lot of money, but that wasn't important. School, I was a bit of a class clown. I'd get hit with a tennis shoe, open hand, a ruler, and then there was a math teacher, horrible guy. He had like a dowel rod with a large cork on it, and he'd come around and rap right on the knuckles. All my parents would say would, oh, you probably deserved it, because they went through a time in that was corporal punishment too. At age 11, in the British system at that time, we had to take what's called the 11+ examination. If you passed that, you went on to grammar school. And from grammar school, you go into college. I didn't pass, but it gave me an extra year. So I didn't graduate until I was 16. During the last few months, we had recruiters coming from companies. We had one from W.H. Smith & Son, which was the largest stationers company in England. So I got picked up by them, which meant that I went to London to work, which was exciting to me at that age. I'd go in underground and we were like packed in like sardines, but I didn't care. And then another opportunity came for Winsor & Newton, which are large in paints. And they were in my town. Less money, but I didn't have the cost of going up to London. My older sister, she and her husband had emigrated to Canada. They lived there for 2 years and they came to the States. They said, you ought to come over to the States, try it for a year. So I came to the States. It was a 13-hour flight. And I recall the stewardess coming up and asked me what I liked to drink. And I said, tea. That's all I drank. And so off she went. She came back and she said, we don't have any hot water, but I can give you iced tea. I had no idea what iced tea was. I said, all right. So she comes in and I take one sip. I thought, my God, it's cold tea. I thought, I'm going to a land of barbarians. Everything was bigger over here. I mentioned to my sister, I said, even the teaspoons are bigger. And within a month, I picked up the phone and called an Air Force recruiter. So while my sister and her husband are at work, the recruiter comes over, takes me downtown, and I sign on. Now I'm over there for a year, and I'm obligating myself for 4 years. I didn't think things through, I guess. During that first month, we went to a barbecue at Aunt Doris's house. And so I met Linda. She was 16, I was 18. I thought, oh, she's a nice girl. She talks a lot. But that's not fun.
Yes, I am Linda Roberts. I was Linda Taylor first. My full name, it's Helen Linda Robert Taylor, Helen Linda Taylor, when I was born in March 1941. He was a nice man. He was handsome. I enjoyed talking to him, and that's what we did. We just chatted. I chatted about high school, my friends. He talked about England, his friends. That was it.
She had broken up with somebody and she was not happy about it. And so Aunt Doris asked my sister if I'd write to her. So we became kind of pen pals.
So our correspondence was strictly through letters. I was in an automobile accident and had a lot of neck injury. And finally my doctor said, you just need to go somewhere warm. You need a warm climate. And coincidentally, he wrote and asked me to come down to Florida. My parents had to really think about that one. And they finally gave their permission. So I went down to Florida. He took me to a lot of the touristy places, the glass bottom boat ride. We watched crocodile wrestling, whatever they were. After we would go somewhere to eat at night, we'd go into Orlando. There was a place called Lake Eola. We'd walk it. We'd walk all the way around the lake, and then we would just sit on the benches and just chat.
That's where I proposed to her, and I really had no intention of doing that. It just happened.
He said, what would you say if I asked you to marry me? I said, I'd probably say yes. And that was it.
It didn't have a ring. There was no down on one knee, that kind of stuff. We really didn't know each other that well, except through letters. I mean, it was just something that was meant to be. That night, I just blurted it out. I didn't even know I was going to do it, I don't think.
It felt correct. It felt like I really wanted to be with him. Yeah, it was just, I guess, a more, I don't know how you describe it, almost like a more gentle feeling. We were married at night. I picked that. Had I suppose, it's a very traditional, nice service. I only had 2 attendants, maid of honor, and then I had a junior bridesmaid. My brother was in the wedding party, and so was Irwin's brother-in-law. He was our best man. And we were married on November 25th, 61, which he chose the date, but it's also my grandmother's birthday. And that was kind of an extra special date. So.
I remember at the reception, which was at her aunt's house, standing next to Mr. Taylor. And I said, I'll take good care of your daughter, Mr. Taylor. And he looked at me and he said, I would never agree to this if I didn't think so. When you marry somebody, you marry the family. And it was a great family. I was very lucky to have married her. We were both told that we'd have a hard time having children. We might even have to have injections. You know, so 11 months after marriage, she became pregnant.
I think he was nervous. In '61, we didn't have the sophisticated equipment we have now. And we used a fetoscope and an old-fashioned stethoscope that you put around your head. And I brought one home from work, and he heard the heartbeat.
So Eric came along and frightened to death to hold him. I just knew I was going to drop him. What do I do with this wiggly thing that she's placed in my arm? Yeah.
Irwin cradled him in his arm and held his arm so tight that when I took Eric, he couldn't put his arm back. Yeah, he was locked in. He adapted very well. Learned how to bottle feed. Diapers came maybe a little slower.
My name is Eric Russell Roberts, and my father, Irwin Russell Roberts, we have the same middle name. I'm his firstborn son. I was born in 1962. Yeah, some of my earliest memories of my dad would probably be when we lived in Trenton, Illinois. He was stationed at Scott Air Force Base at that time. He would get out on his hands and knees and we'd climb on his back, play the horsey. You know, we'd ride us around the living room, try to knock us off, that kind of thing. So that, and there's another one too, because there were 4 of us. My mom, you know, she was a nurse and she usually worked, I think, second shift. But my mom and dad worked as a team, you know, as far as raising us. And so when it was bath time, you know, we'd all line up, and my dad had the hair drying duty, and he had this technique where he would put the towel over our head and he would do this back and forth. And every once in a while we'd get little burns on the back of our neck.
The towel. Drying the hair and 3rd-degree neck burns on your neck.
3rd-degree neck burn.
And you'd be going
And
like
then
that.
Mom would put like,
She'd have to put cream on her neck. Like, and we didn't say anything. You know, we just let Dad burn our necks. Just,
It was almost like he was buffing a shoe. And he'd put it over and just, and you would get the occasional burn marks on the back of the neck. And
Oh, it was terrible. But that's the way I used to dry my hair, you know, no problem. Yeah. Child abuse, no doubt.
I'd say we were very fortunate with Dad.
okay, yeah,
He's the father that
everybody wants.
children dream of having. Very quiet, calm. He was the most laid-back father ever. Dad was not strict at all.
Not at all.
No.
I don't know that I would say he was overly strict. I don't know that I would say he was as laid back as what Karen did say. He had what we just referred to as the look. He didn't really have to say a whole lot. When you got him to the point where he was fed up, he would just have this look on his face, and he wouldn't say a word. He would just look at you, and you knew, I've crossed the line here. And then he would just continue to look at you.
So he's got that British dry humor. He can be very funny. I mean, very witty. It just kind of comes out of nowhere. But also stern.
Like everybody was afraid of him when we were growing up.
Yes.
All our friends
Oh my
were
God, they were
scared to
scared
death.
to death of Dad.
They thought he was so scary. Because I think he didn't
Well,
smile much.
he's very prim and proper.
Yes, he is.
Very proper. Like you'll never hear my dad sit at the table and belch. You know what I mean? No.
No.
No. Very prim and proper.
I liked how he talked, and my friends wanted to hear his accent.
Oh, everybody would come over, or they would say,
Have your dad say a word.
have your dad say something.
And we'd run up, and he'd be reading. He'd be saying, "I say, Dad, say bath," and he'd be like, "Bath." Wouldn't even look at us.
Or
And he'd run
say
away.
castle.
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 But he never looked up. It was always reading. Castle. And then we go.
When Mom was working, he would take us shopping. You could always tell he was very thrilled to do that. take 4 kids shoe shopping. And at Kmart, they had these big bins in the middle of the store full of Converse shoes. And he would say, go find a pair that fit.
We were very well provided for.
Yeah.
If we wanted something, he found a way
To do it.
to do it. And I don't mean in a spoiled way, but I mean, if you asked for something for Christmas, you got it.
got
You asked something for your birthday, you got it.
And he would sign us, like, I did ballet for, oh my God, years, ballet and tap and baton and Hawaiian. And if you wanted to take it, he'd like it. You know, and it wasn't like, oh, we couldn't afford it. Did it
They
somehow.
never said that.
I never heard the word can't afford it.
Never.
Growing up once.
They put their needs aside for us.
We always came first. They never went out. They would go out once a year, maybe, and it was usually like the squadron Christmas party.
Mm-hmm.
But even their anniversary, they were home with us.
I
And
mean-
they'll say that now that we're older, we hear there were money problems. All right.
We never saw it.
Never saw it.
And we
never knew
never
it.
witnessed mom and dad if they ever
Arguing
got
about
in an
money.
argument. Huh?
Never.
I mean, I know some of the struggles now because they talk about it that they had, with finances and things of that nature that we had no idea growing up. I can honestly say I never once can remember my parents getting in an argument.
Yeah, and that's a result of, my dad and my mom working together as a team. Growing up in the military has got a lot of benefits in that you get to see a lot of different parts of the world. Some of the negatives, the drawbacks is we did move around a lot. If you start like an activity, whether it be like scouts or some kind of sport, and then you move, you may not always be able to continue that, at the next location.
It was difficult for them because they'd be somewhere and they'd get friends, and then all of a sudden they're moving somewhere else.
It's really hard on them. It means a new school, it means a new group of friends. And I'm trying to decide what needs to be shipped now versus what can go into a storage until we get housing where we're going, and trying to get things marked for the packers, because I'm telling you, if you sit still, they pack you.
And I know in a lot of military families, there are children who just can't handle that, and they have all kinds of problems. I didn't see that with them. They accepted it. And that was a lot of pride for me, that they could turf them up and take them somewhere else, and they were okay. They were and still are, I think, very close to each other. And maybe we've had something to do with that, I would hope so. Yeah.
Always made sure that wherever we were, we saw all the sights of that place. When he got stationed to California, we drove to California because we hit all the...
From Columbus.
Yeah, from Columbus, Ohio, yeah. We saw Colorado Springs. We saw...
Did you ever see the Grand Canyon somewhere?
Yeah, we did the Grand Canyon, the Petrified Forest. What's the... Pikes Peak, yes. And even when we lived in California, we went to San Diego, we went to the Redwood Forest, and then we got stationed in England, and we went to all the castles in
Little
London,
churches
and we'd visit the Abbey. And
he
when
made
you
it fun.
move constantly, you don't have, like, I can't say, oh yeah, I grew up with that person. No, I didn't grow up with
don't have
anybody. None of it.
Yeah,
We
did.
grew up with each other.
Yeah.
And when you make a new home, you don't know anybody, so we have all 4 of us.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons that all us kids are so close today, because we moved so much, and you're always meeting new people, so who you had in the house was who you had. And the family structure from both our parents was instilled in us at a very early age.
Family was important. Families help one another, and families stick together.
I mean, he made career decisions based on how it would affect the family. In fact, he retired short of another promotion in order to keep the family stable here in Ohio. This was my mom's home state. He knew she was happy here, and for him to continue with his military service and to take a promotion, it would have made a move to a different state. That's huge. I mean, not too many men can do that. Prior to his retirement, I guess he made argument with the Air Force there out at Wright Pat that they need to have a director of family services. He put the wheels in motion, I guess, in order to establish that position. And I remember his first office was not much bigger than like a broom closet. It was very small. And then a few years later, I come visit, and now he had a whole wing that was added to the main building, and he had a staff, and it was remarkable to see him grow that from nothing. And that became his second career.
She is quite an amazing woman. I took her into an entirely different life, and she did very good in that. Whatever she sets her mind to, she does very well. And I think she was a lot better in the beginning of being a wife than maybe I was at being a husband. I mean, I kind of didn't have a clue. I was learning, and it seemed that she was already okay with it. She may not have been, but that's the feeling that I got.
I think it's just the fact that we're such a team. I've always had a sense of security with him, even though in the middle of the move, we didn't know where we were going, but I knew it would be okay.
I think we've seen him evolve too, growing up. It's been probably the last 20 plus years where he's more at ease, more relaxed, still loves hanging out with the family, loves interacting with the grandkids.
Just to be able to sit there with these two people that have been in love for 62 years, and it seems like their love is just as strong as it was the first day is really pretty incredible. Again, that's not something that too many people have these days. Marriages don't last that long.
My dad never, ever
Yelled at
put
her.
my mother down,
Ever.
never degraded her,
Never.
never degraded
Always-
us children.
Always put her on a pedestal. She has always been on a pedestal. He just always.
They have the fairy tale,
They do. They have the fairy tale
big
relationship.
fairy tale.
I really think they do.
One of the coolest things I ever saw, so my mom's eyesight's going, and I would go to church with him sometimes on Sunday mornings, and I remember she was struggling to zip up her coat. And so my dad's all dressed, he's got his suit on, he's got his overcoat on, and he's bent down, he's trying to help her zip up that coat. Well, he got it for her. And I'm standing there watching that, and I'm just thinking, my God, that's love, It was just a really special moment. Yeah.
He'd been having a lot of pain, and testing here, testing there, they could never really come up with anything conclusive. They thought he had precancerous or cancerous tumor on the pancreas, and that surgery just didn't go well. So he had to go back to the hospital. They found out that he was septic.
Fortunately, I wasn't aware of how bad I was. One of the doctors apparently said that you might want to gather the children. They thought I was going to die. And Eric had just arrived in Texas. He'd gone down there to see his grandkids. And Kim gone to Gatlinburg. And they were literally unpacking the car. And Linda called them. Eric turned around and came back right away. And Kim said, do you want to stay here or do you want to go see Grandpa? And they all said, we want to go see Grandpa. And they got in the car. I mean, that's how close the family were.
He was never alone the whole 24 hours.
It was just so scary because you never
She
knew.
pulled a shift. This was my shift.
I would
and-
go to hit the hospital like at 4 a.m, and I'd stay there until I had to go to work. Eric would be there until about midnight, 1 o'clock sometimes. My mom was always there because you were so terrified something was going to happen. Olivia used to go in, my youngest, and read him books. She read him a story, and he sat there and listened to this whole damn story. And then he politely said, Linda, do you mind if the kids step out for a minute? Stepped out, got them out the door, and shit hit the fan. That's when the hepatic liver thing was happening.
Mom had to go to the bathroom, and I said, I'll walk down the hall with you. And we came out, and someone's screaming at Mom. And I
Oh.
said, Mom, oh my God,
Terrible.
looks like that guy got shot. It was my dad.
When they coded him, I would not leave. I stayed right there. They said, would you like to leave? I said, nope, I will sit here on the windowsill and I will be quiet, but I am not leaving. There's no way in God's earth they were getting me out of that room. Oh.
The pain on my mom's face was something that I don't ever want to see somebody in that kind of pain again. But at the same time, you could also see how much, love was there.
I know he struggled. I would say my mom probably really struggled more than that because she was there every day. And he was in the hospital about 6-7 months. He walked in normal, built, he had muscles. Mm-hmm. I mean, by the time he got out, he couldn't even sit up, feed himself.
I'm in the Kettering Fitness Center working out, and I saw one of the ICU doctors in there. And I went up to him, I said, "Hey, I know you probably don't remember, but my father is Irwin Roberts." And he said, "No, I do remember." He's like, "How's he doing?" I said, "Oh, he's great." I said, "He works out here, 3 times a week." And he was floored, because then he confessed to me, he said, "We're not supposed to say this, but we honestly didn't believe he was gonna make it." I'm like, well, he made it. He kept fighting, and so he's a fighter. He was not gonna leave my mom. And I don't think if it wasn't for that love, he probably would have, he wouldn't be here today. He wouldn't have survived that. Yeah, so.
In my eyes, anyway, he's always been this larger than life figure. It's just everything he does. It's the way he conducts himself, the way he interacts with people. Everything was almost like a constant teaching moment. I've tried to duplicate what we've learned from him and put it into how I am still raising my kids.
We get our values from family, from church, from school. I like to think I got most of my values from my father. He always carried himself as a gentleman, as a professional, as a man of God. I took from him those values and kind of developed my own value system, so that was real instrumental to me.
He was very giving. He's always helping the needy. He was always helping somebody. And I think we all do that. And that's because of him. They both pretty much, I feel, gave up everything so I could work. So they babysat my kids. And my mom gave up her career. And then he retired, and he really, they just took over. And I'm sure that wasn't the way they wanted to spend their retirement, is raising 4 more kids. But it was just like, okay. Mm-hmm. He even bought a van so he could take my kids around. I think that's pretty cool.
He is very proud of his family, and the way we all are very close to one. I think
we still
all
are. Yeah, we still are.
And we're still out today. We're in our 50s, and who do you call
Mom?
Who do you call Dad?
Still nothing to do. We're going to Mom and Dad's.
And in this day, when everybody seems to go in different directions, our kids have stayed. It's nice to be able to have them together and to get together, even if it's occasionally on a holiday, on maybe a cookout in the summer or something, and just be together, enjoy each other's family. And we stay in communication and photographs and little notes and keep that family alive.